Coaching hire drama, conference championship week openers, and a best bet. But before we get into that, Bobby, we got to start the show with the absolute doomsday scenario that only a sport like college football can cook up. What happens when a 5-loss team in a power conference is your champion?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So just to kind of talk a little bit about how it's going to work likely. So the committee ranks the top 25 or until they get top 5 conference championships. We saw that in the beginning of November when they showed Memphis on the bracket graphic, yet they were unranked in that week's poll. So this week, obviously Tuesday, they're going to go through the graphic. They'll probably use, I know they've been using Miami as a placeholder for the ACC spot because they were the highest ranked team, even if they needed like the weird tiebreakers, which obviously didn't happen for them.
Right.
So I imagine they'll use UVA as a ranked team as the placeholder in the 11th seed. If James Madison is unranked this week, Tulane will likely stay at 24 in the rankings, I imagine, or maybe 23 in that range. But if James Madison's not in the top 25 on Tuesday and Duke wins on Saturday, we're going to go into Sunday not knowing who's ahead of who for that 5th conference championship. Because again, all it matters is, of the 9 conference championships between Friday and Saturday this week, we're the first 5 highest ranked get auto bids in that. So it's very likely we will not know who is that team. Now, what happens? I mean, I don't know. There's obviously some crazy odds out there. I know DK earlier was listening 40-1 on Duke to make the playoff, and Prominent Offshore was 30-1. I think those numbers were kind of crazy on that, just to be honest. The committee is clearly showing a disrespect for James Madison, not really caring about their resume. Now, there's likely to be 4 losses difference on that. So I do think that it's possible that we do get 0 ACC teams in, which would be kind of stunning. But I do think at price that was kind of absurd. But they are showing a disrespect to the G5 in general and James Madison specifically on that. But I'll be curious to see what they do. I mean, this is a TV show; they can kind of do whatever they want. The other scenario with this is, and a team we'll talk about here in a minute, is if Duke wins, they bring in James Madison. Does that make them more motivated to not screw over the ACC and they give Miami an at-large bid?
So your thoughts right now is that if Duke wins, high probability they do not make the playoff.
I think it's like a coin flip. So you're in a weighted coin a little bit against Virginia. It's 3-point. They're roughly, Virginia's a 3-point favorite right now, but that is roughly a coin flip-ish game, right? And now you literally have a coin flip with James. Let's call it a coin flip with James Madison. You see the odds on the screen here: plus 138 to make the playoff at FanDuel. No is minus 170 for James Madison. So it's basically Duke winning 2 coin flips. That's not 10-1. That's not 15-1. That's not 40-1, which was out there on Duke to make the playoff in a game like that. You have to be really convicted that they're going to eventually have to respect James Madison, or I guess maybe do something really weird with Boise. I don't know, but like that seems very, very unlikely, or UNLV, I guess. But yeah, I think 2 coin flips. That's what that would be in. But yeah, I don't know what they do, but I think those prices were kind of crazy on that.
2 other teams that feel very coin flippy-ish, but right now the market odds say that Notre Dame most likely would be the team to make the playoff. Notre Dame listed at minus 375, and Miami listed at plus 820 to make the playoff. Our friend of the show, Charles Saul, with his comment, FSU getting the last laugh against the Canes, making their conference opponent win percentage be just bad enough to not make the ACC. How funny is that? So, Bobby, what are your thoughts here? I mean, no one could envision at the beginning of the season the impact that Sunday night game would have with Notre Dame losing to Miami just by 3 points, kind of in a rainstorm. CJ Carr's first game. But we talked about it because you were hoping that head-to-heads would matter in a playoff, but now it has just a significant magnitude as Miami can't be a conference champion, but they are the best team for their conference. But they did beat Notre Dame. Again, another fascinating scenario to talk through.
Yeah, and obviously this is so eventually, like if the teams get paired next to each other, it seems like that's when kind of chaos can happen and things can flip, I imagine. So looking at last week rankings, Notre Dame 9, Bama 10, BYU 11, Miami 12. So we only have 2 teams in between. Obviously, if Texas Tech beats BYU, they're ejected from it. So 1 spot closer there. Then Bama comes into play here, and I have some questions about Bama. We'll talk about that here in a second. But obviously, maybe they win, they beat Georgia, they'll move up. If they lose, will they get penalized again? We'll talk about get penalized for losing the conference title game. I think not, based on what happened at SMU last year. But whatever, they move up, they move down. So that could put Notre Dame 10 right next and Miami right next to each other at 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Which then you have to consider. Okay, at that point, if they are rated right next to each other, do they flip spots when you truly get them side by side? I think there would be pressure to do so. You're seeing a lot of media types talk about how do they not have Miami ahead of Notre Dame, yet the popularity poll that I make fun of, the AP poll, also has Notre Dame ahead of Miami as well. So it's not just the College Football Playoff Committee. I think it's kind of understood that we do actually think Notre Dame is the better team on the field than Miami, despite the head-to-head result. You do / kind of should respect that, even if it happened in week 1, CJ Carr's first start in a rainstorm, etc.
Yeah.
Again, not sure what the committee will do, but I know I wouldn't be jumping to bet Notre Dame minus 375 on the yes to make the playoff right now. I do find it interesting too, of course, if BYU were to win against Texas Tech, that Notre Dame no price, actually the yes, but like it's very similar to what the BYU money line is as well in that one against Texas Tech here. So obviously
as it
BYU
should be, right? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because that's just an easy minus +1 in out, and then both Miami and Notre Dame are effectively out. So that's another way where it's not necessarily like, oh, go bet that +8, 820 on the Hurricanes, because I guess technically BYU can win that game, and that would eliminate both teams and completely, nuke that head to head.
You want to talk us through Alabama?
Yeah. So where Alabama will get seeded is one of the most interesting things I think about the bracket. I think they're almost certainly very likely in the field. As I mentioned, we saw SMU last year, 1-loss team take the second loss in a close game to Clemson and still make the field there. So I think that conferences, the TV money, they want to make the conference title games matter and not want teams to tank to avoid it, quite frankly, to where it's beneficial to not play the games to kind of hold your spot. The question thing, so let's say Bama beats Georgia, and that's now 2.5 in market right now. So obviously very possible. Does Bama jump to a top 4 seed? You'd think that the SEC champion should get a bye every year. That would make sense, but now they have 2 losses, and they were 10th in the rankings this past week, so they would have to jump from 10 to at least 4, jumping the likes of Oregon, Texas Tech, maybe Ole Miss, Oklahoma, who beat them, et cetera, to get up to the bye for simply winning the conference title game. If they do lose, I do think they stay at 10. The ACC. The 2 of 3 between the team from the American, James Madison, Duke will be ranked behind them. I think they would just stay at 10 if they were to lose. It will be interesting to see that, like, if a team like Alabama, who's kind of on that borderline, if they get blown out by Georgia, maybe that changed things. We haven't seen what this committee will do in that case, but that'll be interesting as well. And the second part of this is we have, including Alabama here, so many SEC teams, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, who are in this mix to be playing in that first round, where teams seeded 5 through 12 will play, with 4 playing on a home field. situation. So with that in mind, like, are they going to avoid rematches? Obviously, Oklahoma's played both Ole Miss and Alabama. Are we just separating them? Are they going to play with the seedings to avoid, interconference matchups in the first round? We don't know this. We haven't come across this yet. We're too early into the growth of the format. But you can see a team like Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas Tech maybe get played around with in terms of their seeding, and maybe they set that up on Tuesday night, just in case. But it'll be interesting to see if we get, quite frankly, intra-conference matchups, or if they try to avoid, double SEC matchup into playing maybe Georgia, coming into the bye. If
Right.
Georgia has a bye, they'll set those teams up to have to play Indiana, to play Ohio State. So that'll be interesting to kind of see there.
Bobby, you want to talk us through some of the coaching hires that have happened, I guess, literally within the last 12 hours? I think we've had definitely 3 SEC coaches be hired. You want to walk? I guess let's start things off with the infamous Lane Kiffin. The saga's finally over. He's definitely moving to LSU, but we're not even sure which coaches are going to be transitioning from Ole Miss to LSU, and it's possible that Charlie Weiss Jr. may stay at Ole Miss, even though he's on a plane, per Twitter. Can you walk us through all this craziness that's happened just since we woke up this morning?
Yeah. First of all, I'm so glad it's over and that we don't have to deal with the decision 2025 for Lane Kiffin. Hopefully Marty Smith can get some sleep. We know he had a rough night in the facility, but his hair was still good, so that was fine. But yeah, obviously controversy there with Lane. It looks like a lot of the defensive staff was paid. It looked like Ole Miss did some back channeling with some of the staff to try to keep some of them going on. Obviously, like,
Right.
Golding was announced as the permanent head coach like immediately, so it seemed like they were prepared, obviously, for this. Assumed Lane was leaving right away, so I think that was kind of a good job by Ole Miss, kind of knowing what was coming and kind of playing it out. And then we'll see what Lane does to reset in Baton Rouge. Obviously, he didn't get what he wanted, which was to continue to work in Oxford for the playoff run, which I think is kind of crazy. But yeah, I think Ole Miss did as good a job as I think they could have done, given the situation that Lane kind of put them in, to try to set them up to keep continuity for their upcoming playoff run and what's a dream season for that program. As for the rest of the coaching fires, I don't get Florida fans upset about John Summerall of Tulane. I think that's a great hire, quite frankly. I think he's going to do a great job there, and potentially win immediately, depending on what he can keep from that roster. Galesh to Auburn.
Just quick 2 cents. The last guy that came from Louisiana didn't do so well. I think they're more just spoiled, right? Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, and then just this long run of Ron Zook and all the other bums that they've had come through Florida.
Remember for Florida that Urban Meyer came from a G5 at the time. Utah was a Mountain West team then.
That's right.
They hired they got Urban Meyer from the G5.
No, I agree wholeheartedly.
Duke was the worst program in power conference football, the ACC. That's where they got Spurrier.
Right. No, I agree wholeheartedly.
There's not a system. It's just like betting. There's not one system that works every time. A+ hire for Florida.
I think a lot of these teams really wanted to win the James Franklin sweepstakes.
Yeah, and Virginia Tech, obviously A+. I think we mentioned that before. Galesh, sure. I don't have a ton of opinion there. I think he'll do a fine job there. I do think Auburn's a really good place to win. Right before we hopped on, Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State after they fired Jonathan Smith.
Right.
First off, I'm team Jonathan Smith. I thought he did a great job at Oregon State. I thought it was an odd fit in East Lansing. So I'll be hopeful that he gets another coaching job. I think he can rebound and do well somewhere else. Pat Fitzgerald, we'll see what he does. He obviously won the suit with Northwestern based on his firing there. That's probably a decent program fit regionally and for what a Michigan State program is. And then in your neck of the woods, Silverfield to Arkansas. Great day for Memphis football in my mind. As I tweeted earlier, I think he's a potato, and
absolutely,
Memphis is one of the best resource G5 programs with money and resources and Arkansas is a really hard job to win at, and I don't think he's got it. He's one of the do less with more coaches for the G5, so I think I think a D is generous for Arkansas in my mind. I think that's probably the worst hire of the cycle.
Yeah, if you read any local Memphis sports Twitter, a lot of gratitude. And if you read any local Arkansas sports Twitter, a lot of despair. I feel like the tweet of the day, though, definitely goes to uh, Brad Powers with Arkansas having the protest on campus today for the hiring of Ryan Silverfield. 25 people, most of them on their phones. Looks like Arkansas finishes last in protest too. And that about sums this up with how this coaching cycle has gone for Arkansas. You fire a coach in, I believe, week 5, and you come out with the 8-4 coach from Memphis that's never made an appearance in their conference championship game, has a losing record against teams above 500. So there you go. That sums up the coaching saga. But let's move on to something a little bit more positive, which is the odds for conference championship week. Let me go ahead and get the odds screen pulled up here. We will, it was worth mentioning, I'll go ahead and talk about this right now. We have decided to break conference championship into 2 parts. So Tuesday's show will be at the same time. We're going to break down Conference USA, the Mountain West, the ACC, the SEC, and the Sun Belt on Tuesday. Wednesday night show, Bobby and I will be back here breaking down the American, the Big 12, the MAC, and the Big 10. So right now we're just going to highlight quick market thoughts, but a deep big game breakdown style show for all 9 conference championship games. So Bobby, we start with Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State in CUSA action.
Yeah, that one's going to stay between the 3s, I think, here on that one for now. I really haven't. That's one I'm excited to dive into for the Tuesday show. I'll admit I've opened, my numbers were right around that, so I haven't done too much work on that one. For the next one, look at the Mountain West on Friday night. UNLV Boise, bad FanDuel opener here, opening up Boise plus 1.5. I think that they didn't have home field in, quite frankly. These teams played in mid-October, albeit with Madsen at quarterback for Boise. This closed double digits on the same field. So I make it higher even than the current 3.5 that it's out now. I actually think the 3 that's available at DK and a couple other shots, I do think that's bet worthy at current still. That would have been a best bet if 3 was more widely available.
I do want to note that Bobby did get the, hey, text, you got to get on this right now. I was able to get this up on Twitter. Boise minus 1.5 was our only Sunday morning coffee play today.
Yep.
So if you're not following us on Twitter, you absolutely should, because this is one of those times that we were able to get the tweet out before the market moved to 3.
Yeah, for sure on that one. And that was once it kind of popped available elsewhere, kind of everywhere moved to quick 3, 2.5 and 3 pretty quickly after FanDuel, and then DK also opened kind of similar to FanDuel as well there. Moving on, SEC total 47.5 here. We leaned over in the regular season meeting, and obviously this is well below that. That was like in the low to mid 50s, I believe. We talked a few times about dynamics with totals with both teams, how they would look like overs on paper yet play to unders. Both offenses looked really unimpressive in games this past weekend. Georgia really struggling to pass the ball against Georgia Tech's defense, which was kind of stunning. And then Ty Simpson running for his life against Auburn and took a ton of hits against the Auburn blitz.
Yeah.
And he hasn't shown the same level as accuracy. And that one, we even saw some Georgia money come in right before the show here. On that one. Big Ten, last kind of big overall thought here. I'll be interested as you're kind of discussing and thinking about this game, how much home field you potentially give to Indiana in this game. This fan base is 100% along for the ride. And this is obviously like in their backyard, Lucas Oil in Indianapolis. Now, Columbus is only a 2.5, 3-hour drive from Indy. OSU's been here before. They're thinking national title. They might be thinking about going to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, the final, where Indiana is a ravaged fan base right now, where they're going to every single game. I mean, ticket prices for the Oregon-Penn State game last year in the Big Ten title game were like $12 get-in price. A buddy who lives in Indy sent me like ticket price for this one, like approaching $1,000 to get in for this one.
Wow.
Like this is a, I think we're going to get 60 to 6, like you're not gonna be able to tell by colors on the stadium with Reds here, but I think we're gonna get 60 to 65% IU fans here, and I'm wondering if you kind of give IU a half point. I think there's a floor here because like Ohio State's fan base is just too big to not bring like a big contingent, and they're too close in proximity. But I think like this is gonna sound kind of like Bloomington a little bit in this one, so it'll be kind of interesting to see. And talk and how people talk and if anyone gives them home field. Assorted market movement thoughts here. So we'll kind of bounce around. Tulane and Miami of Ohio. Openers were kind of weird on this one. There's some 2.5, some 3s out there. Most of those 3s got taken out on both. I actually saw that the 3 on Tulane actually gone that was available about an hour ago. Quick note on the American title game that I'll get out of the way. Tulane head coach John Summerall, North Texas head coach Eric Morris. They both will coach this game and coach their teams through their run. They're, of course, going to Florida and Oklahoma State, respectfully, in that one. Going back to the MAC, or return to the MAC, I guess, little under money as well. That was like 44 earlier today. So coming down, obviously a fast track on a turf field in Ford Field in Detroit. Miami doesn't have their quarterback, Finn. And this one probably starting a freshman who's played the last 2 games for the Red Hawks. This one, the total was in the same range when these teams played a couple weeks ago. Did go over the total, but not by much. So I'll be interested to see where the total goes on the side there. But I do think there was some interesting things with the total there. And then in the ACC, did see a small move here on Virginia. That one opened up around 2.5, and you're seeing mostly 3s in the market.
Guys,
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Before we move on to our best bet of the night, please click that like and subscribe button. I know every YouTuber asks you to click that like and subscribe button, but it really does make a difference. Trust me, I look at our analytics, and when you guys like and subscribe to the show, it actually sends it out to more people. How all that happens, I'm not sure, but I do know that it works. And it's actually really helpful, and it really supports Bobby and I and our effort to create quality betting content for the betting community that we know and love. So if you're on Spotify, please give us that 5-star review, and on iTunes, it does the exact same thing. When I see us gain more followers and gain more 5-star reviews, it also promotes our show throughout the ecosystem, and it just flags awareness to other guys interested in betting content that this is a quality show. With that said, Bobby, best bet of Sunday night, we're going to go over 57.5 in Duke UVA.
Yep, obviously these 2 teams played 3 weeks ago. Total was opened the same as it is at 57.5, was bet up to 59.5, and quite frankly, I just think that's where this number should be, is 59.5, 60. I don't trust the Duke defense. 5 straight poor performances, which includes giving up 45 to Clemson, 37 to UConn, 34 to this UVA team, 25 to UNC, and you know that's unimpressive, even though it's a lower number, and 32 to a Wake team. And there could have been more points for the Demon Deacons in that one with some turnovers, some fumbles in plus territory there. And I think the UVA defense has benefited quite a bit from a weak schedule of opposing offenses. This Duke team has been Jekyll and Hyde all year, but their offense has a ton of potential. I think both teams get to 30 here. Give me over 57.5 Duke UVA.
You can follow Bobby at BobbyDigital2 on Twitter. You can follow the show at CFB900. As we previously mentioned, Bobby and I will be back here Tuesday night to break down half of the conference championship slate, breaking down the other half of the conference championship slate on Wednesday night. Both shows, 7 o'clock Eastern. Hope to see you soon. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Adios.